And I'm fortunate that I like talking about money because there's a lot of things that I don't like talking about that I can kind of avoid. But money is one of the things we kind of have to talk about. Like we all have to talk about it at some point. It's immersed in our everyday life.
Financial independence,
freedom,
financial picture,
independent financially,
financial future,
financial freedom and wealth,
financial independence.
Get your fill, financial independence and long life. Hello and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals, and people come on who are perfect to help us do that. Today, we have with us Amy Cook. She is the founder and financial advisor at Maven Lane Financial Group. Amy's career spans over 20 years in financial services, transitioning to financial advising in 2009. She is the author of the Amazon bestseller, Your Money Narrative, which delves into how personal experiences shape financial behaviors and decisions. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. It's funny, I was just talking with somebody the other day. Actually, it was in my mastermind group. Someone asked the question, like, why is it that we have this, where do we get this dichotomy, sort of like everybody wants to have money, but then we think like rich people are bad. And, I thought, do you really want to be that horrible, B word who's driving by in the, whatever, in the flashy car? And one of the women said, well, where do we get that? Where do we get that this idea that rich people are bad? And we sort of started on a conversation, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, do you find that in your clients at all? And where do you think that comes from?
Yeah, well, essentially, that's kind of what the book is all about, is kind of our stories that we bring into life, or our adult lives. And a lot of times they come from when we're young and we form these opinions around what money is, whether it's good, it's bad, it's scary. These can be good narratives and they can be negative narratives as well. But ultimately, like a lot of times we're making decisions based on these thoughts that we have kind of deep into our system around money, and sometimes it's not helping us. Sometimes it's hurting us more than it's helping us. So kind of the whole idea is just exactly what you're doing, and is having that conversation, like, why is that bad? Why is having money bad? A lot of it comes from maybe how we were, our parents' beliefs and their own fears around money, or shame or guilt, or, you don't talk about money because that's very bad. Or if you have money, you don't talk about it because that's also very bad because you're bragging. I mean, there's so many ways that we can sort of digest that and bring it into our adult lives.
Well, even, I was thinking about television, and, when you think about not all of them, but there are several like holiday movies like The Grinch and what's the other one? Oh, Miracle. I mean, no, not that one. It's a Wonderful Life, right? The rich person is the bad person. They're the evil person. They're the miser, they won't help people and they won't give anything to others and stuff like that. And then they have to have the ghost come visit them so that they start to care about other people. And it's just, so I don't think it's like our parents can be 100% to blame. There is some sort of societal weirdness out there too. It's like this idea that you've got these wealthy misers out there that are making life miserable for everyone else.
Oh, sure. You're talking about, yeah, Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about, I mean, I have two kids. It's like, yeah, we can be blamed for everything or nothing, or whatever. It is what it is. And I think a lot of this stuff generationally has been passed down. I mean, if we go back, even just starting at the Great Depression and what that did to people, that scarcity. And I remember my grandma, reusing like a little piece of tinfoil or a baggie, and it was just shameful to throw that away.
Right.
So there's a lot that just goes on and on and on and on. I think that in some ways, I mean, and I know that's not the point of this podcast, but there's certain things that are kind of okay, gender related, for a man to, be powerful and make lots of money. And then when a woman does it, she's just this, aggressive way type of person. So there's a lot. It's, it's gender, it's generational. I mean, it just goes on and on.
So how do you help people to get beyond that and say, oh, actually, I would like to be the one, the hot chick driving around the Mercedes or the flashy car, and it be and feel good about it and not feel like you have to hide your light under a barrel.
I think that the first step, and obviously, writing that book, I had a lot of my own money narratives that I've worked through for years and years. And I think just questioning some things that maybe we do over and over again, or that we think over and over again, and their validity. It's like, I feel really guilty about this car, or, whatever it is, why? Assuming that all the other boxes are checked where you can afford it, you're not living beyond your means, buying things that, you've worked
Right.
hard, it checks all the boxes there. It's like, why do I feel this way? And so when we start just kind of asking ourselves why, and questioning these recurring thoughts that come in, it's really the first step. But like anything else, it's not an overnight thing to just unwind a wiring.
Right.
If we've been living this way and we've been making decisions a certain way for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it's not just going to change because we suddenly realize that we're doing it.
Right.
But it can open up the door for a lot of great conversations like we're having right now, where people say that's silly, or joining groups like you're in, where maybe you throw it out there into this thing that you're so convinced of, and then everyone can look at you and go, why do you feel that way? It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Are there, one of the questions that came up actually on an unrelated topic, but it kind of applies here, is the idea of using, like, an affirmation, or using some kind of a mind hack, I guess you could say, to try to get beyond that. Do you think that that's valuable?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many of the personal self-development gurus, if you will, that encourage affirmations, because what we tell ourselves has such a outstanding impact on the decisions that we make. And a lot of times we don't even realize we're telling ourselves this thing, or we're so hard on ourselves, or we're, just beating ourselves up for something. And I think a lot of times we just need to give ourselves the same grace that we might give someone else, or, just a little bit of slack, because no one's perfect. And, it's not a straight road, right? I mean, there's going to be a step back, a step forward, a couple steps back, and that's just life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we just have to let it go. How was your narrative? How did you recognize that you had your own narrative that maybe wasn't serving you so well?
Yeah, I mean, I talk a lot about myself in the book, and in the first chapter, I kind of tell my story, being, young. My parents lost their house when I was really little, and at 7 years old, I had no idea what was really going on, other than everybody was really stressed out, my parents, and there was just a lot of fear. And I saw him that way, and to me, and my not knowing all of the facts and circumstances around it, it was all about money. And it was like, oh, if we only had more money, if we, everything would be okay. But I didn't know how much. I didn't know what the solve to the problem was. So it just became this, just money was the answer. And as I kind of started, my adult life, I worked and worked and worked. And it was like, just got to keep going all the time, because, don't want to waste any time, end up living under a bridge.
Mhm.
But as I look back on that, and I started kind of, unraveling that, even when I moved past that fear, or not really, or past that position where that was even something that would likely happen, or that there was even a strong possibility, I was still living in the same mind. And so just realizing that was kind of the first step to open up some other stories. And it really, money is just, paper. What it was really about was the emotions, and not wanting to see my dad sad, or my dad stressed out, or my mom,
Yeah.
or the tension between the two of them. And so I think at the end of the day, a lot of times our decisions really aren't about this number in an account or net worth. It's about the people that we love and the people that we care about, and ensuring that we can take care of them, and that we can leave a legacy that we want to leave.
Yeah, absolutely true. Because that's the other side of that coin, right? That you think if money is the answer, and then all of a sudden you get some money, but you still don't feel necessarily at peace and you don't feel like you have enough. So then you have to get some more money, right? And then it's like, well, wait a minute. Is there really some magic number I have to, aspire to? Or is it just, how can you help yourself to feel like you have enough and that you feel that you are, you can take a vacation and you can relax a little bit. And how do you help people to get to that point where they have some money security?
Well, absolutely. I mean, and so so you can have like a spendthrift who spends all of their money and doesn't, put things away for the future, put money away into those areas, or you have someone who's afraid to spend any money. And even though they have plenty of money and they will never run out of money, they're afraid to spend any money on themselves. And that's, a different set of circumstances. And I think that financial planning really helps with that, because we're able to really uncover what's going on and create kind of a roadmap to say, well, this is what you're doing, and this is why you're doing it, and this is what it's going to create or produce when you need it to start paying you back. Because habits are formed, and sometimes they're really good habits, like putting money away into your 401k and your retirement and investing in real estate and all these different things. But if you don't know like what it looks like on the other side, it's just a growing number, and that doesn't really connect. And I think that a lot of people in my field just look at that growing number and it's like, here's the statement, here's where it's at. Well, is that dollar amount going to be enough to support me when I want to, stop working, or maybe not stop working and just cut back? And
Yeah.
that's where planning can really help.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of brings up another point of a lot of people who listen to this podcast would like to quit their day job in order to do something that they really love. So to start their own business or to take a side hustle and turn it into a full-time thing. And I know there's a lot of insecurity around that. Like, well, if I let my full-time job go, am I going to be able to live? But then again, I can't build my other business unless I let this full-time thing go. So, how can people like realize or be comfortable to make that transition?
Well, I think that, what you laid out there is a case by case. Like, there's some people that probably shouldn't leave their day job to do something like that. And then there's some people that can. I mean, it's really covering those risks as much as you can. I mean, it's always a risk, starting a business. And as a business owner for years and years, I mean, I get it. And there's a level, there's a chance level or a risk level that you have to take going into an endeavor like that. And you're right, it's not a part-time thing where you just build some multi-million-dollar business on the side while you're still working your day job. So I think that, again, in preparing for that, it's just making sure that you have the adequate reserves and expectations, for what that's going to look like. And assuming, I always kind of go into new ventures like, what's the outlay? And we sort of assume that we're not going to make a ton of money in the first year.
Yeah.
And so we have to make sure that there's enough money, put away to cover those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a totally different question, but tell me about the painting behind you.
Oh, isn't she cute?
Yeah.
It was a painter. I found this on Etsy, and this, I forget where he's located, but yeah, it's the girl facing the bull. And it just, resonated because, like many women, I feel like I'm always trying to stand up to the bull, but yeah, but it's a great little piece.
Yeah, it is. It is. So how does it look when people sort of sit down with you and start working together for the first time? Like what kind of conversations do you have? What kind of what what would people expect if they were going to sit down with you for the first time?
Just, conversation like we're having right now, except, me asking a lot of questions about what they have going on right now, what the pain points are, what's keeping you up at night. So there's some people who have worked with advisors maybe their whole career, and others who wake up and go, oh my gosh, like I need to look at this. And I would say the sooner you look at it, the better, because if you still have 10 years of working life or 15 years of working life, that's better than no years.
Yeah.
When we have no time left and there's like, I want to retire next year, and and let's say as an example, things don't look that great, there's really no way to solve for that except you got to keep working. And
Yeah.
if there's some time, we can make changes and say, hey, if you shift this and this and this, you've got a good shot. And I think one of the fears for some people sitting down with an advisor is just like, oh my gosh, they're gonna look at all my stuff. They're gonna think it's a mess. They're gonna, all
Yeah,
these thoughts
absolutely.
around that. But it's really, but if we just keep that perspective, it's just money. And I'm fortunate that I like talking about money because there's a lot of things that I don't like talking about that I can kind of avoid, but money is one of the things we kind of have to talk about. Like we all have to talk about it at some point. It's immersed in our everyday life, and it's like, it's just not completely avoidable. I mean, you can get help, but there's just, there's got to be some level of a joint collaboration there. And it's too bad that in high school and junior high, I mean, I feel like money management classes should be like on the mandatory
Absolutely.
or list. But hopefully that'll happen.
Mm, someday. That would be good. Yeah, it's interesting that it is something that it seems to be something that you sort of have to go after on your own, right? That there's no one's pushing the information at you. You really have to say, I want to make money. I need to understand it.
Mhm.
Where can I go? And then you realize, oh, there are all these resources, but it's not, I don't know. It's interesting that we're not uh, given that kind of information just out of hand in primary school to say, hey, you should all start saving, one nickel a day. Let's go. Let's start doing it
Mhm.
together. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, there's just not a lot of preparation. And then if you think about how many, people aren't getting prepared or kids aren't getting prepared at all from their parents because their parents are struggling themselves with, what the right answers are. Then they go to college and then people are just throwing debt at them and credit cards and all these things. They don't even have jobs.
Right, right.
And so it's a rough start and a rough like go out of the gate. And I tried in the book to put chapters about kind of, they're all fictional stories about fictional characters, but all relatable stories about people that either you might be able to relate to or your mother, your brother, your friend. But covering like the people just starting out and the business owner, and then also the teenager who's very ambitious and what should they do? What should they look at? So I think that there's some good basic information in there, and especially for people who may not like talking about money because it's written in a way that it's just stories. And I think we all
Yeah,
like a good story.
absolutely. That's true because you're right. What you said earlier. Some people are just, they feel like if they throw all their paperwork in front of a financial planner, that person is going to say, oh man, you screwed up. Why didn't you do this? And it's hopeless for you now. You're just a loser. You just didn't do it right. And people are, I'm sure, like feeling some insecurity that they didn't do a perfect job in preparing themselves for retirement. But now that it's 2 years away, they can't avoid it anymore. So they have to finally bite the bullet. And you're like, well, if only you would
Right.
talk to
Or
me a little
or,
sooner.
or the concern is like they're going to tell me I can never spend another dime.
Yeah.
They're going to look through the budget and go, that's out, that's out, that's out. I always say like that. I mean, there are, it depends on the advisor. Everybody runs their business a different way. But to me, if I'm looking at a whole budget worksheet and seeing where the money is going, and I say, okay, we need X amount of dollars to put towards these goals, it's not my role to tell you where to take it because your
Right.
priority is going to be different than mine. And you may enjoy, some obscure hobby that's so critically important to you. And for me, it might be something totally different. So to me, it's just, knowing what the numbers are. And if there is a gap, then of course it goes back into the client to say, hey, I don't really care about this expense. This could go,
Yeah.
or, whatever it is, or eating out, or, for some people that would be number one. For some people, they say, I don't even like sitting in a restaurant for 2 hours, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, it's true. And then if your goal to retire or whatever it is that you want the money for, if that becomes more important than some of these other things, it's like, well, it's worth it. I'd rather give this up for a few years so that I can have a really comfortable retirement and let that money grow. And then, you can delay that for a longer term, for a longer term goal that's more important.
Yeah, and I say that like kind of, I mean, and sometimes it's not like you really have to give anything up. It just might be that the things that you have in place aren't doing what they're supposed to, and you need to get them working for you in a better way. So every situation is so different. There's not always, in fact, I think the more that you put things where they're supposed to go first, it frees you up to where you don't have to feel guilty when you do those things that you want to do
Yeah.
versus doing them and then going, oh, I probably shouldn't do this. But you don't know why. You just know that you feel guilty about it and you're just not
That
sure.
was just too much fun. So it must be
Right.
wrong.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I think you can make it sort of a fun thing if you just say, okay, we've got 5 years left and we want to have this much money. So let's see how many things we can do. Because there are lots, at least around here, there are tons of free activities if you just sort of, or and inexpensive activities if you just sort of make a fun game of it and say, oh, what should we be, um, what should we be focusing on? What can we do? Like what can we do today that would be less expensive than, playing whatever or doing whatever that we also enjoy doing. But if the
Yeah. And
family can
there's
take it on as like a fun challenge, right?
right. And there's lots of low-hanging fruit too that that a lot of times people aren't looking at, like things that we pay for that we don't even know,
Yeah,
paying twice as much as we should, like our cell phone plans, our cable, our Wi-Fi, and that's just like a no-brainer money because I mean it doesn't even affect you or you don't feel it other than
right.
due
It's the
diligence
same,
of checking on it, every
right?
too.
Yeah, and somebody was talking about, that they have a bunch of apps that they were paying for, and each one was just a little bit, but by the end of the month, it's over $100 by the time all these little, it's like, death of a thousand paper cuts, all these little things are taking a little bit of your money. And you think, oh, that's only 1995. Oh, that's only whatever. It's like, well, yeah, but do you actually, if you don't need it, it won't even hurt to just to
Right.
get
And
rid of
so
it. And then all of a sudden you got an extra $100 or whatever.
yeah, it's like when you really want to watch a show or something and you do the 7 day, the 7 day trial, and then you notice, 6 months later that haven't turned that station on or that channel and you've been billed the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They're trying to do that to me now at the car wash because I went to sign up for the car. Oh, we have a free promotion, so it's going to be, you'll pay for the smaller amount, you'll pay for the minimum, and then what you'll actually be getting the maximum. Like, okay, for 3 months, and then I was like, put it in your calendar and go. And then when I went back to turn it on, like, oh, now you can pay for the minimum, get the middle. I'm like, all right, fine, but I had to do the same thing. 3 months from now, I have to go and cancel it because I'm not going to pay for the more, the higher car wash.
And that's a great way to do it. Like, yeah, did you put it in your calendar? Because that's
Yeah,
what if I don't
yeah,
just like literally, I won't just remember, you've got to put that reminder to where it pops up,
yeah.
like call so and so or check on such. Yeah.
Exactly. Cancel this thing, all right?
Yeah.
So what kinds of things, I mean, we're actually already somehow we're getting sort of near our the end of our time. So I want to make sure that you have a chance to answer like what's a question you wish I would have asked you, or what is it something that you want to make sure that people really come away with and that they understand from listening to us today, to you today.
I think it's been a great conversation. I would say, just, it's not a sprint. I always think of the tortoise and the hare. It's like if you have 20 things you need to do or 10 things that you need to do and you can't do them all right away, at least if you're doing some of it and attacking, one or two things in the next year, it's like you still didn't, check the box on the other eight. At
Yeah.
least you did the two. So, I mean, give yourself some grace, that it's not a one and done. It's better to do the one versus not do any at all. And I think that just not, that avoidance is probably the worst possible thing to do. It's like, just look at it. Most of the time it's not as bad as we think and it goes into kind of just the stories that we tell ourselves. Occasionally it is, but it is what it is. And
Yeah.
it's better to like we talked about earlier, give yourself some grace and know that the more time you have, the better it is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. So, how can people reach you? How can they, if they want to buy the book, if they want to reach out to you and work with you, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah. So we have our own page, you and I, for the podcast. So my regular website is Maven Lane Financial Group. And then if you /WCW, there's a page that's built out for our podcast. The book is available on Amazon, and audio, hardcover, Kindle, all that. There's also a website with a couple of free checklists that are associated with the chapters, and then some more that you can purchase, which is yourmoneynarrative.com.
Okay.
And I have information on my regular website, on planning packages and things like that. So yeah,
All right.
I
Excellent.
can give it all to you again if you want to post it with the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want to do is to put it into the show notes so that people who are not, able to write all this down right now, they can just go to the show notes and click the links and have all the information that they need. Um, But yeah, Amy, I think I love what you shared, and you're absolutely right. We just all need to just do it today because the time value of money is real. And we want to jump into it and um, don't waste another minute sort of double thinking or being regretful of what you haven't done yet. Just do something today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was fun being on your show, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been a great talking to you, Amy. Thanks for being here.
You too. Thank you.
All right. And thank you, listener, for listening. Hey, do you know anybody who doesn't have all the money they want? Do you know anybody who is not 100% ready to retire and that they're like kind of frustrated and struggling with that? Because you should forward this episode to them right now, and they will be so grateful and so happy. And Amy and I will be grateful and happy too. So do that and then come back next week and see what we have for you. Have a great week.